You're scrolling Zillow at 11 p.m. for the third time this week, seeing the same mediocre houses you looked at 2 months ago, except now they're $18,000 more expensive. Your landlord just sent the lease renewal, another $175 monthly increase. Everyone keeps saying just wait for rates to drop, but every time you wait another month, these houses cost more than your last month's rent. You're stuck in this bizarre purgatory where doing nothing costs money and doing something might cost more. Sound familiar? You're trapped in optimization paralysis. Your real estate agent says, buy now before you're priced out forever. Your financially conservative parents say, wait for the crash. The personal finance subreddit says you're insane to buy in this market. Meanwhile, you're hemorrhaging $65,000 every 3 years to a landlord while the down payment target keeps moving further away. Nobody's showing you the actual math on both. Scenarios. Here's what I'm going to show you: the complete mathematical reality of buying now versus waiting for better rates, including the specific price increase that makes waiting financially catastrophic, even if rates drop exactly as predicted. We'll calculate the real monthly cost difference, the opportunity cost of rent paid while waiting, and the income requirement for both scenarios. Then I'll show you a real household budget at $85,000 trying to make this work so you can see exactly where your breaking point is. If mortgage rates drop from 7% to 5%, but home prices rise from 500,000 to 550,000 while you wait, which scenario actually costs less per month? And how much money did you burn in rent chasing the better deal? Let me validate something first. You're not crazy. You're genuinely stuck between terrible options. Action feels reckless. Inaction feels expensive. Optimization feels impossible. This isn't your failure to understand markets or make decisions. This is the market's design working exactly as intended. Everyone profits when you're desperate enough to overpay or anxious enough to wait indefinitely while bleeding rent. What you need is mathematical clarity that cuts through the conflicting advice. So let's run the numbers. Everyone's debating, but nobody's actually calculating completely. Here's the baseline comparison. Scenario A is buy now at $500,000 with a 7% rate. Scenario B is wait 18 months for rates to drop to 5%, but prices rise to 550,000 during that waiting period. These aren't hypothetical projections. Historically, when mortgage rates drop significantly, home prices surge as pent-up buyers flood back into the market. The spring of 2021 showed us this exact pattern. Rates dropped, everyone thought they'd found the window, and prices exploded 20% in 12 months because demand released all at once. So we're going to calculate the complete monthly cost for both scenarios, not just principal and interest, everything. Property tax, insurance, HOA fees, PMI, if applicable. Then we'll calculate the total cash you burned waiting, the equity you didn't build while renting, the moving target of your down payment as prices rose. By the end of this, you'll know which scenario someone making $85,000 can actually afford, and whether that 2% rate drop everyone's waiting for actually saves you anything or costs you everything. Here's what shocks people first: the monthly payment comparison. Let's build this line by line so you can see exactly where your money goes. Scenario A, buying now at 7% on $400,000. That's assuming you put 20% down, which is $80,000 on a $500,000 house. Your principal and interest payment is $2,660 monthly, but that's not your housing cost. Add $300 property tax, $180 insurance, $120 HOA fees. If you only put down 15% instead of 20, add another $100 for PMI. Your total housing payment is $3,260. Now, scenario B. You waited 18 months. Rates dropped to 5% like everyone predicted. Beautiful. But that house is now $550,000. You're financing $440,000 at 5%. That's assuming you maintained the same down payment percentage, which we'll address in a minute because that's where this gets brutal. Your principal and interest is $2,360. Add $330 property tax because the assessed value is higher. $200 insurance because everything costs more now due to inflation. $120 HOA. Possibly no PMI if you manage to hit 20%. Your total housing payment is $3,110. Look at that. You saved $150 monthly by waiting for the better rate. Victory, right? Not even close. Here's the gut punch. In those 18 months you spent waiting for rates to drop, you paid $32,400 in rent. 1,800 monthly average. That's $32,400 that could have been building equity in a house you already owned. The $150 you're saving each month by waiting takes 18 years to recover the rent money you burned while waiting for the better deal. 18 years. Let me say that again because this is the calculation that changes everything. Your monthly savings from the rate drop is real. $150 is $150. But you spent 32,400 getting to that savings. At 150 monthly, you need 216 months to break even on the rent you paid waiting. That's 18 years, and that's assuming home prices don't rise further, your rent doesn't increase, and nothing else changes. The math is absolutely devastating. But here's what nobody's calculating. The opportunity cost gets so much worse. Let's talk about the down payment moving target and the equity you didn't build. You started with $80,000 saved for your down payment. Solid position. That's 16% on a $500,000 house. You're close to avoiding PMI. You've got real skin in the game. You're ready, but you decided to wait for better rates. Smart move, everyone said. 18 months later, rates did drop. But that house is now $550,000. Your $80,000 is now only 14.5% down. Hello, PMI. That's an extra $120 monthly for years until you hit 20% equity through appreciation or paying down principal. If you were specifically trying to hit 20% down to avoid PMI entirely, you needed $100,000 on the original $500,000 house. Now you need $110,000 on the 550 house. Where does that extra $10,000 come from? Let's say you're aggressively saving. Maybe you're putting away $1,500 monthly toward that down payment, but you're also paying $1,800 in rent. You're going backwards $300 every month. The down payment target is moving away from you faster than you can chase it. This is the treadmill everyone talks about, but nobody shows you the actual math on. Now let's look at the person who bought in scenario A. Yes, they have the 7% rate. Yes, that's painful. But in those same 18 months, their house also appreciated to $550,000. They now have $130,000 in equity, $50,000 from appreciation, plus about $80,000 in their original down payment, plus principal paydown over 18 months. The person who waited still has $80,000 in savings. The buyer has $130,000 in equity. The opportunity cost of waiting just cost you $50,000 in wealth you didn't build. Here's the complete 18-month waiting period cost. $32,400 in rent paid, $50,000 in equity not built, $10,000 additional down payment now required. Total cost of waiting is $92,400 to save $150 monthly. Look at that number. Really look at it. You burned $92,400 chasing $150 monthly savings. The people telling you to wait for better rates aren't showing you this calculation. Let me show you what this actually looks like for a real household trying to make either scenario work. Meet Sarah and Michael. Combined household income, $85,000. They're slightly above median household income. They should be comfortable, right? They've saved $80,000 for a down payment. They're responsible, educated, planning carefully. Let's see if they can actually afford either scenario. Their gross income is $85,000. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance premiums, their take home is $6,200 monthly. Now, scenario A, buying now. Housing payment is $3,260. That leaves them $2,940 for everything else. Everything else meaning all of life. Car payments for both cars, $700. Student loans, $450. Car insurance, $240. Groceries for two people, $700. Utilities including electric, gas, water, trash, $220. Internet and phone, $140. Gas for both cars, $280. Health insurance copays and prescriptions, $180. That's $2,910. They have $30 remaining monthly. Zero retirement contributions, zero emergency fund building, zero vacation savings, one broken. Appliance destroys them. Here's what that $30 margin actually feels like day to day. It feels like Sarah's check engine light coming on and both of them sitting in silence trying to calculate whether they can afford the diagnostic fee before they even know what's broken. It feels like they're dog limping and them genuinely debating whether a $400 vet bill means they eat pasta for 6 weeks. It feels like Michael's work laptop dying and that being a legitimate financial crisis requiring a credit card they'll carry balance on for months. It feels like their friends asking them to dinner and them lying about being busy because they can't say we have $30 for the month and it's the 19th. They're not building retirement. They can't take time off. They can't handle normal life friction without debt. This is what affordable actually means at 85,000 household income trying to buy a $500,000 house. The payment technically fits, the life technically doesn't. Now scenario B, what if they wait and buy at the better rate? While they're waiting, rent is 1,800 monthly. That leaves 4,400 for all those same expenses we just listed, 2,910, which means they can actually save 1,500 monthly toward the bigger down payment they'll need. This works significantly better in the short term. They have breathing room, they can handle the vet bill, they can go to dinner occasionally. Then they buy in 18 months at 5%. Housing payment is 3,110. Now they have 30,090 remaining after housing. Back to the same brutal margin, same vulnerability, same can't handle a broken washing machine without crisis, same zero retirement contributions, same financial fragility where one person losing their job for 8 weeks means foreclosure. The verdict is neither scenario is actually affordable for them. The math technically works on paper. Lenders will approve them. Real estate agents will congratulate them. But lived reality includes broken cars, medical bills, aging parents who need help, and the psychological need to occasionally live life. Both scenarios trap Sarah and Michael in permanent financial fragility. They're not failing. The market failed them by pricing median earners out of median housing. But here's the elephant in the room nobody wants to address. Let's talk about who actually benefits from the buy now before you're priced out narrative. Your real estate agent collects commission on today's sale. They get nothing if you wait 18 months and buy through someone else or don't buy at all. Their incentive is you buying now, regardless of whether it's your best financial move. Mortgage lenders front load interest. They make more total money over the life of your 7% loan than they would on a future 5% loan. Your payment is higher, they collect more. Interest, their profit is greater. Sellers want to offload before any market correction. Literally everyone in the transaction makes more money if you buy now at unfavorable terms. Nobody with financial skin in your game is telling you to wait. The system has zero incentive to protect you from overextending. Pre-approval isn't asking, can you afford this and maintain a decent life? It's asking, will a bank eventually get their money back if you default and they foreclose? Those are completely different questions. One cares about your thriving. One cares about their risk mitigation. The cultural narrative that home ownership equals adulthood equals success masks a specific reality. Being house poor is a particular kind of misery. It looks like success from the outside. You own a home. You're building equity. You made it. But inside that house, you're trapped in constant low-grade financial terror where every unexpected expense triggers panic. You're one crisis from ruin. You can't leave your job even if it's destroying you because the mortgage doesn't care about your mental health. This is normalized as a responsible adulting. It's not. It's a trap that profits everyone except you. But here's the scenario nobody's discussing. Scenario C, keep renting. Max out retirement contributions. Build actual liquid wealth. Maintain career flexibility and geographic mobility. Only buy when the numbers truly work for your life, not when you're desperate to stop feeling behind. Yeah, you're losing 1,800 monthly to rent, but you're losing massive amounts to interest as a buyer anyway. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Rent is the maximum you'll pay for housing. A mortgage is the minimum. When you rent at 1,800, that's it. That's your housing cost. Roof leaks, landlord's problem. Water heater dies, landlord's problem. Property taxes increase, not your problem. When you have a mortgage, 3,260 is your minimum. Water. Heater dies, that's 2,000 of your emergency fund gone. Roof needs replacement. That's 15,000. Property taxes jump, you're paying it. The mortgage is the starting point of housing costs, not the ceiling. If Sarah and Michael rented at 1,800, saved 1,500 monthly, and invested that in boring index funds averaging 8% annual returns, in 5 years they'd have $113,000 liquid. They'd have career mobility to take the job in another city that pays 20,000 more. They could handle emergencies without credit cards. They could move for opportunities. They'd be building actual wealth. Compare that to buying. They'd have some equity, sure, but zero liquidity. No retirement buffer, no life margin, trapped in whatever job keeps the mortgage paid, regardless of whether it's good for them. The math on renting while investing beats being house poor in almost every scenario when you account for flexibility, opportunity, cost, and actual quality of life. But we don't talk about this because home ownership is treated as the only valid marker of adult success. You're supposed to sacrifice everything to own, even when the sacrifice destroys your financial security and life satisfaction. Let me give you permission to do something radical. It's financially rational to keep renting if buying requires cannibalizing retirement, emergency funds, and basic quality of life. You're not falling behind. You're not missing out. You're not failing at adulthood. You're succeeding at math. The specific threshold is this: if your total housing payment, everything included, not just principal and interest, exceeds 30% of your take home pay and leaves you with less than 6 months' expenses and emergency savings, you cannot afford this house. Full stop. Doesn't matter what you're pre approved for. Pre approval is not permission. It's a prediction of the bank's risk tolerance, not yours. The bank is fine if you're house poor and miserable as long as they get paid. You should not be fine with that. When the lender says you can afford 400,000, they mean you can make the payments without defaulting. They don't mean you can make the payments and also retire someday, take a vacation, handle your car breaking, or live without constant financial anxiety. You can choose not to play this game. Valid alternatives exist. Keep renting while building a six-figure investment portfolio. Wait not for perfect rates, but for your income to grow enough that the payment leaves real margin. Move to a lower cost market where the same income buys actual financial breathing room. Buy a smaller place or a different property type that leaves you with life flexibility instead of buying the biggest house the bank says you can technically afford. Accept that homeownership might not happen in this market at this moment. And that's okay, because financial security matters more than checking a cultural box. Here's the reframe: home ownership isn't the goal, financial security is the goal. A home you can afford without gutting everything else, great. A home you can't actually afford without sacrificing your future, that's a trap. Renting while building wealth is the sophisticated move, not the failure state. The house you can't quite afford doesn't care about your emotional need to feel like an adult. It just sits there, expensively, while you bleed money, maintaining the appearance of having made it. The people pressuring you to buy don't pay your mortgage. They won't be there when the water heater dies and you've got nothing saved. Your parents bought their house for 3 times their household income. You're looking at houses 6 times your income. Their experience doesn't apply. Their advice comes from a different economic reality. When they say you're being too cautious, they're measuring against a market that no longer exists. Run your actual numbers, not the best case scenario, not assuming nothing breaks. Your real take home after all deductions. Your real monthly expenses, including the ones you're pretending don't exist. Your real emergency fund or lack thereof. Your real retirement contributions or lack thereof. If the numbers don't work, believe them. Don't negotiate with math. Math doesn't care about your timeline or your family's expectations or the cultural narrative that 35-year-olds should own homes. The market doesn't care that you're ready, or that you've been patient, or that you did everything right. Waiting for perfect conditions while burning rent might cost you 100,000 in opportunity cost. But buying in desperation might cost you a decade of financial fragility where you can't breathe. There's no universal right answer. There's only the answer where you can sleep at night. If waiting for rates to drop means prices rise faster than the monthly savings accumulate, you lost. If buying now means you're one crisis from foreclosure, you also lost. The only winning move is the one where the math works completely, the life works sustainably, and you're not sacrificing everything else you value to check the homeownership box. Sometimes that means buying. Sometimes that means renting indefinitely. Sometimes that means leaving the market entirely for somewhere your income actually works. What I need you to understand is this: you're not broken. The market's broken. The ratio of home prices to wages is broken. The cultural expectation that everyone should own, regardless of financial reality, is broken. Your hesitation isn't weakness. It's your brain correctly identifying that something doesn't add up. Trust that instinct. The math either works or it doesn't. No amount of wanting it badly enough changes the numbers.